Hey guys, Bugcat7 here. Okay, it is Thursday, May 30th, 2019, and I'd like to thank you for visiting the Stonewall Research channel here on YouTube. Thank you very much. I really appreciate it, and please do hit the like button, guys. That would be great. Okay, well, today I wanted to talk about mop-up operations on Great Tartary because I have an interest in Tartary, and it really comes from Sylvia at the New Earth channel. Here's her latest video telling you to go over and subscribe at her new channel where she'll be posting more of her documentaries, etc., etc. And it's really just more fascinating stuff here, guys, like these megaliths at Jerash and Jordan, and just confounding and, no explanation that's adequate, and a lot of questions, more questions than answers, and, it'll all be explained away and rationalized and everything. And people will say, yeah, that sounds good, whatever. He went to college. But in any case, that's where my interest in Tartary really comes. And, we see these, I do anyway, it's no explanation for these things. And, I even did a video on Chinese Tartary, the Manchurian deception, and there is no such word as Manchuria. That was made up by the Japanese in the 17th century, and I think it really, sort of heralded the beginning of the mop-up, but, it really, I think, changed hands, or, the reins were handed over to the West. And we're going to talk about that because you can see right underneath that I show the Buddhas of Bamyan about the casting of it on giant scale. And there was casting. Even mainstream admits there's evidence of casting on a giant scale. So, you have to think about these things. And people's capabilities and what they're capable of doing in the past is, quite frankly, much more than we even realize. And History Maze just put out a video about this contraption, evidence of this contraption, hard 100% proof evidence of a contraption that would cut stone. Okay, that was like, 2,000 years ago, or 2,000, just an incredible amount of time in the past where this machine, water-driven machine, was cutting stone. It's just ingenious stuff. So people were smarter in the past than we think, okay, and able to do things that you couldn't conceive of, because just the effort to do such things even today exceeds our somehow our know-how, certainly practical limits, etc. So we have to look at these things and question how these people were able to accomplish these things with the know-how that they had, and apparently were able to do much more than we think. So, but as I said, I think the reins were handed over to the West, really, to sort of get in on the whole mopping up of Tartary, Great Tartary, because the Russians had done it themselves with Russian expansion and sort of, erased Tartary. And if you look at this map, you can see, the territory is huge. And, obviously, if you're holding territory with the outlines like this, it suggests a high level of organization, politically or whatever. Through treaty or other means or whatever. The only way you could have a cohesion here of any sort would be for some sort of level of cooperation, certainly, if not an overall, dictate of, agreements in terms of how people were to conform to whatever was there. So that really suggests a high level of understanding and organization. And when you look at this article in Wikipedia, for example, here, the online baloney encyclopedia, they don't have a lot to say about what Great Tartary contributed, inventions, writing, whatever it is, and trying to tell me some empire with a territory like this that had to be highly organized and obviously had to be defended too. And I had suggested a couple of times in my videos that the Cossacks, who were Turkic people, and the Magyars, okay, who are Turkic people. I mean, look at these guys here. The Magyars from Hungary here, okay, were these, sort of professional horseback soldiers that were all over, the Turkic areas, all throughout Russia and, just everywhere, like the Cossacks were spread out over these regions, and that's because they were Turkic people. Okay. All right, and here's where the main concentration of Turkic people are here by the Caucasoid Mountains here between the Black Sea and the Caspian here, right? The highest levels of concentrations of Turkic peoples. And this, you have these up here in Siberia for some reason through this expanse here and here as well. But, that's what this says in this Wikipedia thing here. But we know from going over even Chinese Tartary, right, and Manchuria here, which was a confederation of tribes, that two were Asian tribes that were Buddhist and one that was Islamic Turkic people. And somebody had commented on my video here on Chinese Tartary that I did, right, that didn't explain the white mummies there and everything. Well, I mean, it doesn't really, but, you got to think the Turkic people were up in these areas here, and Turkic people are, they're Caucasians, they're Caucasian people. They come from the Caucasus, that's where the Caucasus Mountains are. Between the Black Sea and the Caspian Sea. See? That's where they are. And that's where the Turkic people are. Goofy. So, I mean, why should that surprise anybody? They are there. Simple as that. And, we went over that in my video about Chinese Tartary, which is, really was the last vestige of Tartary left over, right? Because, Grand Tartary, Great Tartary, right? That, they sort of finished that off in Russia. With Peter the Great and the expansion of Russia and everything, they erased Tartary, really. So, they don't have much to say about it, just where it was from, where to, and all that kind of stuff, the geography. And they give this history here, but look, that's the history of this, which is, it's nothing. Doesn't say much of anything again. But what's interesting here to me in this Wikipedia article is the Tartary and art and all these mentions by all these people, Shakespeare and, just all these mentions of Tartary because, the further back in time you go, I guess, people were just aware of it and, more aware of it evidently than, in our generation, sort of like totally erased. But, why? And, instead of saying, well, wow, we really don't know much about the history of this place, right? So let's find out more. It's just like, let's, forget about it because it doesn't really mean anything because we don't know enough about it or whatever. Just like, if it doesn't, have any real significance in their minds because they don't know anything about it, just sort of go with the narrative that we know and that's it. And that's okay. But it's not really okay. So, you have to question these things. And like, when the Buddhists were destroyed at Bamyan, which, again, it's my video underneath Chinese Tartary there, the Buddhists of Bamyan, right? When they were destroyed by the Taliban, it's because, these people were funded by us against the Russians when the Russians were in Afghanistan at the time. Okay, and they did this destruction here, and it always seems that these proxy armies are doing these things. And look, it's like, the Mark One plumbing truck from Texas, with the 50 cal on the back of it. You're telling me that these trucks, I mean, your grandmother's got to get shook down or in her bloomers, checked at the airport there for firecrackers, but somehow they didn't know that these trucks may be used for this particular kind of thing, considering they were doing it all the time. But look, I don't think there's any coincidences or anything like that. It's all big business. It's all nonsense. And you got ISIS destroying all of these landmarks, archaeological sites, while they were in Syria and Iraq. Everywhere they went, they destroyed all this stuff. So it always seems to be Western funded, covertly funded proxy armies now that destroy all of these things. And I think that was where it switched hands. But that wasn't really until the Spanish American War, right, when the U.S. had no choice but to go into the Pacific because of the Philippines and Spanish. Once they won the war there, right? They had to go into the Pacific, okay, and start going through all the Pacific countries there, and at least take care of the places where the Spanish previously held territories and holdings, right? So that is going to eventually lead to what's going on in mainland China, because it has everything to do with control and commerce and all. It's just, this is the grand plans of the overseers. So, this is how these things work. And if, Tartary had to be like phased out somehow or whatever, that, this was what was necessary to happen. Okay. So, just an excuse to go into the Pacific or whatever. But then, shortly after that, you had the Boxer Rebellion, okay? And, shoot. The Boxer Rebellion, which, was the anti-imperialist, anti-foreign, and anti-Christian uprising that took place in China between 1899 and 1901. But why was that happening there to even begin with? Like, who invited these people and whatever. And this was the whole thing about this, okay? So this was about this 8-nation alliance and these countries involved with the Boxer Rebellion here, right? Which was, France, Austro-Hungary, Japanese, German, Russian, and the United States. So, all these countries, Italy, France, so all involved with this thing, and for what reason. And it seems just like a lot of excuses. And you didn't know about the Boxer Rebellion. A lot of martial artists more or less went to their deaths. So in the world of martial arts, in 1968, I took jiu-jitsu classes in a handful of gyms that were available in the United States here. I happened to be going to one of those where I learned special things. I don't think they teach the kids anymore, but it's interesting in the sense that, there were many different kinds of martial arts, like pet styles and stuff like that were probably killed off with this. And it's just a disgusting, part of this history of ours. It's just, they always say, well, we had to defend our interest or whatever it was. It's, their interest is like nothing, and they're guests in other people's countries. But it seems to be forgotten about a lot. And like I said, the Spanish American War led to this, and then after the Boxer Rebellion, which was just atrocious. I mean, it's just disgusting what they did to these people. There's some pretty gruesome pictures, and don't seem to be showing a lot, but you can see some pretty gruesome pictures online. The best way to get people to, cooperate is, and show their fealty is to get them to execute their own people. So the Chinese did a lot of executing of these martial artists as well. And again, I mean, China was the last vestige of Tartary because of, Chinese Tartary. Still, the ways and customs and everything still very heavily influenced in China. So you got to think about that. And then after the Boxer Rebellion, Roosevelt sent the Great White Fleet out to assert U.S. power around the world, essentially military power. And, we had to do this because now we had these holdings around the world, and a lot of it had to do with coal. Because you had, steam driven technology. So if you didn't have coaling stations around the world or a means of getting coal, naturally you would have to build ships. That was added later on. The United States did not have that kind of navy, and they had a hard time getting money out of the American public just to produce this stuff. And you had to have, coal ships nearby, whatever. And the U.S. was not fitted with these. So, unlike the British, who have, various places around the world where coal was found, and certainly China was one of those places. So, these are the things that why the interest in all of this stuff, and all the reasons why most of these civilizations, for whatever resources or plunder or whatever, are always destroyed and then sort of erased and eliminated. Okay, and here's the Great White Fleet. It's battleships designed by the U.S. after the Spanish-American War. They learned something about naval warfare, and they produced these, real mean-looking ships, but they painted them all white to make them all nice and friendly. And ever since that time is why you have the navies visiting all these major cities and whatnot from different countries, but they all send these, antique ships and stuff mostly, except for friendly countries. But again, I think this heralded the real, handing over the reins of the mop up operations, and, that's what was going to happen. And this was to assert that. Okay. So that was the Great White Fleet in the early 20th century that, if you didn't know about, I think you should learn about it. And, obviously it's seen from, a sort of Western perspective and everything. Everything's all nice and great and everything, but, it's just supposed to be like a peace, goodwill armada, which, you send in warships, it's like engaged in a psyop back then too, they called it a goodwill armada, with some big old cannons to blow people up with. But I think, this is all part of that. And, this was really to mop up operations. And, even to today, it's still going on. It just seems that all of these places around the world where these really super important ancient places are either looted, destroyed because of war and, political climates and everything in this day and age. It's just turmoil, etc. And, who buys this stuff on the black market? I mean, extremely rich people who are like degenerates, So, and what this is, there's lots of people like, Chuck just did a video on a man they destroyed in the United States, and it's just disgusting. It's just, they put a Sam's Club there and used excavated an Indian mound for the landfill, and it's like all cool with the government and everybody. Yeah, we got a Sam's Club, fuck, unbelievable, So this is what people think of this stuff, and it's just that's how it is, man. You got two kinds of people in the world. You got the givers and you got the takers, just like from that movie Instinct with Anthony Hopkins and Cuba Gooding Jr., where Hopkins says there's only two kinds of people in the world, the givers and the takers. And that's it. The reptilians and us. So whatever, guys. I just, that's my thoughts about it. I don't say it's a fact or anything. I think the reins were turned over to, the upcoming power in the world. And that's how it is. Whether it's baked into the cake or not, is a different story. But, you have to wonder sometimes because you hear all this stuff and it just doesn't jive up. And shortly after the Boxer Rebellion and, the 8 nations were like at war with each other. All this stuff doesn't make any sense. And there's obviously some higher, understanding, of maybe, non-human entities, throwing all the curves. So I don't know, but it seems that way to me. And again, you just have all these proxy armies, destroying these relics, and I don't think it's a coincidence. I really don't. All right, guys. So in any case, if you haven't seen my other videos on Tartary, I do mention them in a couple of different videos. Great Tartary and Chinese Tartary and geopolymer, free energy geopolymer, because, a lot of these ideas are being kicked around for good reason, because there's just some inexplicable things that don't make particular sense, that are just not explained fully. And, people question those things. That's all. All right, guys. Anyway, hope you enjoyed the video. Please click the like button. And Buckhead7 signing out. Peace.